Welcome you all to the next lecture in our anthropology series. So we were doing language, culture and communication. Sorry, by mistake I have written 6 here. This is chapter number 7. So please make a correction there. Right. So we were doing language, culture and communication. So let's proceed with it. We had already completed the origin and the relationship we had established between culture and language. So today some topics here and there were left. We'll complete that. So characteristics of language, अभी तक जो हमने part 1 and part 2 of this chapter किया था, we've already completed the characteristics of language here, right? So you will see nothing new is here, but then also I've just pointed some pointers for you. जैसे कि language is a unique it's a unique thing and universal to human beings. We have talked about this, that how language is unique to humans and how it is universal. Universal in the sense that humans anywhere around the world will have a language, right? Then language is a system. Of course it's a system, it has a proper structure, ठीक है? So it's a system of words, phrases, sentences, right? So like that it is a system. Then change of language affects change in culture. Obviously, agar if there is any change in the language, it will affect or show the changes in its culture. So this we had established yesterday only, these, and it is vice versa also. Change in culture shows change in the language also. For example, the usage of lingos today show that language is changing and so is the culture, right? So then language is dynamic. Obviously language does not remain the same. For example, if even if we talk about English, ठीक है, English, the kind of English that was spoken in earlier, it is not the same today. Today we speak a very heterogeneous mix of the languages, right? हम कोई भी language in its purest forms नहीं बोलते हैं. We have a very mix of language and languages are evolving to being more simplistic, right? Then language contains dialects, sociolects and idiolects. Dialects would be due to geography, due to different diversity, so much of diversity is there that everybody brings in their own flavors of in language. For example, North Indian ki English sounds different from a South Indian because it is also influenced by their dialects, their own dialects, right? The mother tongue, right? Then sociolect would be the language spoken in the context of the society. Now this is the part, sociolects or social context of language. This is precisely the topic for today, so I'm not going deep into it here. We'll study this in next slides. And idiolects is your own pitch, tone, usage of words, that would be idiolects. So language has these components. And then language is arbitrary and symbolic. Obviously, for example, हमने कल भी बात की थी about this, that if I use the word bat, right, if I use the word bat, it signifies the it could be that playing bat also, right? It is that playing bat. But who has given, who would have believed that this will be called a bat? If in earlier times somebody called it cat, तो ये cat हो जाता, right? So it is very arbitrary. We have just symbolically associated something. It does not have any logical meaning to it as such, right? It was just that it was named as bat, so it remained bat, right? So that means language is symbolic. We attach words to things, right? We attach certain kind of names to things. They are symbolic, they are arbitrary because then in every language it is different, right? हम हिंदी में उसको बल्ला बोलते हैं, right? So what is that? It shows that they are arbitrary, they are symbolic, they are it will change from culture to culture, society to society, because they are symbolic. Hadn't they been symbolic, so they would have been same all across the world, but it is not so, right? So these were the characteristics, and in characteristics you can also add it has structural view, it has interactional view, it has functional view, the precisely the nature wala part which we have covered. Then also many things you can write characteristics of culture में that it is transmitted culturally. Obviously language हमेशा एक culture में translate होती है. For example, a person who lives there is only a single person on the island. Okay, let's suppose that there is only single person on the island. Now will he have language? I don't think so, because there is nobody to interact to. Why would he need or have language, right? So language is transmitted culturally. Only if you have people around you, only if you have culture around you, you need to interact, and so you need to have a language. So by this you can make a lot many characteristics of language. Now let's go to the next topic, which is social context of language. Now, as we have already done in the part 1 of this video, that culture and language are related to each other, they influence each other. So it is similar thing that what is the social context of language? Matlab, if you study a language in the society from a societal perspective, or if you notice language from the societal perspective, you will get to see a lot of things, you will understand a lot of things. पहली बात तो it is pretty clear that language is transmitted culturally, right? That means language in language the social context is that it is transmitted in a society or a culture. So that is one thing. Then speech community. Now what is a speech community? Speech community is any homogeneous group. ठीक है? Any homogeneous group which is speaking the same kind of a language. ठीक है? एक similar language they are speaking. It could be as large as a country or as small as a family group. तो कुछ भी हो सकता है. ठीक है? For example, people who are speaking, जैसे India cannot be a speech community because in India there is multilinguistic. India is a multilinguistic state. That means we are not comprising of a homogeneous group of speech communities. But then there are many nations which are a homogeneous group of speech community, right? So speech community क्या होता है? When you can group people based on homogeneity in their speech or language. So social context of language में आप ये भी देख सकते हो that India is a linguistically diverse nation, right? Whereas there are many which are not. Then when you study language, if you have to study language, somebody's language, you can see a lot about their social status. ठीक है? For example, I will give you just a very simple example. In a country, the language used by the rich and the poor can never be the same, because language is always studied in its social context. Language, as we have said, that it is transmitted culturally. ठीक है? It has a lot of bearing of the culture that we live in. So the culture in which a rich has been brought up and the culture in which a poor person has been brought up is very different to each other, and so is that reflected in their language. Rich ka language and poor person's language would be very different to each other, right? The rich would be speaking very you could say grammatically correct English, right? Their English would be English, but any language they will speak very grammatically correct language. ठीक है? They'll be a homogenized group. ठीक है? Because everybody there is learning in the same way. ठीक है? तो because उनका schooling है, they have attained certain level of education, so they are a homogenized group and they can be called a speech community also because उनका language एक जैसा होगा. Whereas poor person, ठीक है, no education or very less education, ठीक है, that too not very focused on how to improve language. There is no formal way of learning a language, so unka language and the language of a rich person would be very different. So by looking at somebody's language you can see the class differences. ठीक है? And similarly, so एक study थी, there was a study by Clifford Geertz who showed that how Javanese Java, the Java island, he saw that there was no homogeneity. That means people from a lower group, ठीक है, lower group से जो लोग थे, उनका language was a lot heterogeneous than the people who were from a higher group. Obviously, because उनके पास कुछ formal training नहीं है, they've not learned the language. When you go to a school, how do you learn a language? There is always grammar that's taught, right? So they do not have that. So that is why they are a heterogeneous mix. That means उनका language, it's not homogenized. ठीक है? Then from studying language, you can also see the social aspirations of people. Very simple. If we have to talk about social aspirations, what you want to become, what you are aspiring to become. For example, इस पे study करी थी M.N. श्रीनिवास ने, ठीक है, of M.N. श्रीनिवास की study of westernization and Sanskritization. Now, what is Sanskritization or westernization is part of, you know, paper 2, but I'll just tell you. Basically, what used to happen when we came into the contact of the colonial masters, we tried to adopt or anglicize ourselves because we were very fascinated by their culture, we were very fascinated by the kind of language they used to use, right? So is the process of Sanskritization. When the lower communities, you can say the Shudras, the Vaishyas, who were outcasts or people from a lower group, ठीक है, for them the benchmark of being a very aristocratic or elitist person would be a Brahmin, right? And they used to use Sanskrit. So in order to, because they wanted to achieve that social status in the group or in the community or the society, their aspirations were to improve their ranking in the society. So they also started to use Sanskrit, ठीक है, they also started to use English in the times of colonial rule, ठीक है. So this is how social aspiration also changes or influences your language, because you want to attain a higher social. Today English is what? English is a matter of prestige. We attach English, a person who knows English as being very elitist or somebody who has, you know, he is very intelligent, things like that, all wrong notions, right? So today everybody, every parent wants their child to go to English medium school just for them to learn English. So what is that? That is a social aspiration, because they know that today society, if you have to get a higher social status today in the society, you need to learn English, right? So what is that? That is, social aspirations also determine your language use, what language you are going to use, right? So then status relationship. Now the way you talk to a person, that is also very socially driven. For example, you are not going to talk to your father in a disrespectful manner. So the way you talk to your father, it is going to be very, very in a certain way. The status is defined in that conversation. So आप status को देख सकते हो, right? Similarly, so for, you can say, for judges, how are they called? Your highness, right? So it shows their social status, right? Or the status relationship that we as a person would have with that person, right? Similarly, so your officer, your boss, right? You will always call him as sir. There will be a certain kind of language that you will use. There will be, and language is not always verbal, right? You need to remember this. Language is also non-verbal. So the behavior or both verbal and non-verbal language that we have around that person shows a lot, right? जैसा हम ऑफिसर से बात करते हैं, that is not the same language that we use with friends. Friends के साथ there is a lot of slangs that are used. There is a lot of fun element is there that you cannot do with the officer. That shows your status relationship. ठीक है ना? So language also changes with the person or with the status you are with the social status of a person you are talking to, right? If it is a friend, it will be different. If it is an officer, it's a judge, it's your father, the way you communicate is going to be different. Then social context of language is also seen in the age differences, gender differences. For example, you do not talk to your elders the same way you talk to your younger ones, right? If you have your siblings that are younger to you, you will not speak with them the same way you talk to your elders. So there is a difference. That is social context of a language in in terms of age, and so is gender. Gender में you will see that the way females communicate, it is different from that of males. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है that there should be no gender differentiation, but there is, because if you see males, they are a lot aggressive in communication also. ठीक है, that is not generally true with the females. Females have a lot mild way of talking. Not to say that men can't talk like that, but then they have a little you can say aggressive communicating way, right? They even abuse certain times, right? So females and males, they have a general difference, and that is also a social context of language, right? So level of education also matters. ठीक है, a person who is more educated will definitely have a better language skills, because he has learned that, formally he has learned that. Not to say that people who are not educated cannot have a good hold on the language, but then even if they have a good hold on the language, they might not be knowing the language in its textual way, right? The grammar might not be correct, right? The way it is used in the social context, it might be not the right. Okay, it might be not the best, So this is the social context of language. I hope you have understood how society or social institutions affect our language. So this was all, and then I have just given you two examples. You can quote them anywhere in the depending upon the type of questions that are asked in the paper. So one is the study on languages, ठीक है, and इसमें there was Hebrew, the Israel में बोलते हैं जैसे, and English, इन दोनों में comparison, there was a comparison between the two. Basically what happens ना, Hebrew language focuses a lot on the gender thing. It focuses a lot on gender, ठीक है. So मतलब it is even you can say true for Hindi, ठीक है. Even Hindi में जैसे it's often a joke that we crack कि कुछ भी हम बोलते हैं ना कि ये लड़का या लड़की, जैसे हम बोलते हैं पंखा, हमारे लिए पंखा वो एक मेल चीज़ हो सकती है. हम बोलेंगे पंखा चल नहीं रहा, हम ये नहीं बोलेंगे पंखा चल नहीं रही, right? So even in Hindi we attach certain gender to things, right? So gender in Hindi also मुझे लगता है कि it's an important part, right? ठीक है. Similarly हम बोल सकते हैं हवा चल रही है, ठीक है. तो हम ये नहीं बोलते कि हवा चल रहा है, राइट? सो अगेन हमने हवा को क्या बना दिया, हवा को हमने फीमेल बना दिया, पंखा को हमने मेल बना दिया. सिमिलरली हम बोलते हैं भारत हमारी माता है, भारत माता, तो अगेन भारत फीमेल हो गई, ठीक है. सो व्हाट इज दिस इज हमने कुछ जेंडर, वी हैव गिवन सर्टेन जेंडर टू थिंग्स, ठीक है. एंड सिमिलरली सो यू कैन से फॉर हिब्रू. सो इन हिब्रू ऑल्सो there is gender thing that is attached to the words or language में there is a lot use of gender, whereas in English you will see gender is only defined in the third form. ऐसे कुछ, not everything has a gender, right? We will not say we will say wind is blowing. You can't now really tell me कि whether wind is blowing makes it a female thing or a male thing, right? Or the fan is working. अब now you can't tell me whether it makes fan a male or a female. So that means in English the use of gender description is missing. So now what effect it has on the culture is that the people who use Hebrew as a language, they develop gender sense very early in their childhood, ठीक है. एंड सो मैं मानती हूँ कि इवन दिस कैन बी ट्रू फॉर हिंदी स्पीकर्स ऑल्सो, बिकॉज उनका भी जेंडर सेंस थोड़ा इट इज़ बेटर, मतलब इट्स डेवलप्ड, ठीक है ना, बिकॉज वी अटैच सो मच वैल्यू टू ऑफ जेंडर टू थिंग्स दैट वी हैव दैट जेंडर सेंस. ओके, सो दिस वॉज द स्टडी ऑन लैंग्वेजेस दैट इंग्लिश में नहीं है. सो वहाँ पे इतना ज़्यादा बिकॉज कल्चर में उसका रोल इतना नहीं है, सो इट इज़ नॉट शोन इन देयर लैंग्वेज ऑल्सो. एंड बिकॉज हेब्रू में जेंडर इज अ इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट, सो द पीपल ऑल्सो डेवलप जेंडर सेंस वेरी अर्ली. सो अगर हमको इंग्लिश की बात करनी है, आई हैड इवन टोल्ड यू आई थिंक येस्टरडे और मे बी समटाइम्स दैट in English language there's a lot of importance that's put on the time perspective, because time for them is very important, right? So they have very discrete ways, ठीक है? they use tenses, and tenses भी कैसे रहते हैं? past, past continuous, past perfect, right? that means time is very important, so they develop time sense very well, because उनके लिए time is a very important component of the culture, so is descripted in their language very well, and they develop a sense of time very well. ठीक है? So this shows how language and society are related. So this is one example. Then you can take the example of Japanese language, जिसको ये it is called gendered language also. Gendered language because in Japanese there are words that are different for males and females, because they believe that females talk in a very gentle manner, they have a different way of speaking than men, and men are a little different in their behavior, in their way of talking. So females use different words and males use different words, so they have a very gendered language. That means hearing from that language you will understand, okay, this is a female perspective or this is a male perspective, because then the words used are different and they have to pattern it differently, because they have a feeling that females and males do not speak similarly, because females are a lot gentle, ठीक है? So they speak differently, they have to speak differently from the men, ठीक है? So these are two examples, you can quote them anywhere you require according to the need. Last is non-verbal communication. As I've already told you, abhi tak whatever we were doing, that was verbal communication, right? Verbal doesn't mean that only oral, right? It is मतलब it could be written also, oral also, just जो words में है, we had talked about that. So non-verbal होती है, that is not in words, but you can say gestures हो सकते हैं, ठीक है? And environment का angle हो सकता है, स्पेस का एंगल हो सकता है, टाइम का एंगल हो सकता है, ये सब चीज़ें भी हमको, दे ऑल्सो स्पीक अ लॉट अबाउट द person, the personality, the message we are trying to convey. For example, appearance. If I go to the interview, ठीक है, wearing a rugged jeans and very chappals I wear and go, ठीक है, it will show that I am not very serious or I am very casual person, ठीक है, I do not care, I do not respect the board that is sitting and interviewing me. So appearance, physical look, dress, hairstyle, it has to be appropriate according to the occasion, ठीक है? So that speaks a lot about us. Then paralinguistics, that means the way, the tone we use, the accent, the volume, it is going to be different, as we had seen. Language तो हो गया words, but these are the paralinguistic means other things, how fast I am talking, how loud I am talking, it will depend and it will show the kind of person, the message I want to convey. For example, when you're angry, you start shouting, right? That shows that you're angry, right? Then body movements, if you lean towards, lean away from some person, right? If you lean away, that means you don't like that person, right? Gestures show a lot, जैसे कभी कभी we make faces, or we try to mock somebody, होता है ना, you mock somebody by making certain actions, so that also shows your behavior. Then posture, facial expression, I don't think I need to explain to you all these things. Environment, ठीक है? So all these non-verbal communication are also a part of language. They also can convey the message. Sometimes you don't need to speak it, you can just show it with your non-verbal communication, right? Then haptics is touch. Sometimes you hug somebody, ठीक है, you're going somewhere and you hug somebody, which shows that you're emotional, right? Or you're parting ways, or you're going somewhere, you feel emotional, right? So it will convey your message, you don't have to say it. Then proxemics हो गया, space, how close, or how close you're standing to somebody in talking, shows how intimate you are with that person. Then chronemics, it shows time ka value, right? How punctual you are, ठीक है, that also tells a lot about your personality, ठीक है? If you reach 8 a.m. for a 8 a.m. meeting, that means you're very serious, you want to make that meeting happen, right? So this is the non-verbal communication, and these things also matter and say a lot about you or your message, right? So I think we have completed this chapter. Tomorrow we'll start with the next one. So guys, if you did like the lectures, like my initiative, please like, share and subscribe. Guys, I'm not happy with the kind of response I'm getting. Please be, you should talk to me, make it a more interactive session. Please post in the comment section how you like it and share it. Okay, thank you.